Today, we are going to take a special look at the Psychic type and analyze its attributes, the Pokemon assigned to the type, and how it functions from a combative standpoint. Mysterious in its functions and bewildering to those not expecting it, the Psychic type is a powerful type that can more than use the power of the mind to mesmerize opponents and leave them a bit more than just dazed and confused. The strength that this type has over other Pokemon is near universal in some instances and can go a long way to show the unique and dangerous powers that some more gifted species of Pokemon can have. It might not be among the most conventional of types out there, but the Psychic type is nonetheless a dominating force and a terrible weapon to have access to when all it takes to defeat the opposition is the slow and methodical chipping away at their mind, or just blasting it away in a single burst of mental energy. While in name, the Psychic type might be seemingly easy to define, but the way in which it works is still something that is being hotly debated to this very day. By definition, the Pokemon that are classified under this type have unique extrasensory abilities that allow them to commit to the act of using psychokinesis, which in layman's terms means the direct manipulation of matter with energy. This power comes in a variety of forms, but it can allow those with access to it to create a variety of objects of both a physical and non-physical manner and use them to manipulate the world around them as they see fit without needing to come into direct contact in the slightest. It is believed that this power stems from a special region in the brains of these creatures that is not present in those of normal life forms that grants them access to this power, though some humans have claimed to have such power as well, so the exact degree of correlation is still uncertain. The way in which this power works is another great mystery, with some believing it to be the result of these creatures abusing the laws of quantum mechanics to directly affect the state of particles in space. But with current technology and understandings of the laws of the universe, how this is possible is unknown. At the very least, it has been shown that this type targets the minds of others for its primary form of offense, attacking directly with psychic energy in some form or another to scramble the minds of others and hurt their mental state to cause direct harm to the rest of their body. Physical attacks of the type, on the other hand, almost always involve striking with a limb or other body part that is shielded in psychic energy, creating the same effect but with physical contact thrown in for contact damage. While the Psychic type can be found among an extremely wide variety of different life forms on account of the nature of the type's attributes and requirements, mammals still dominate the field considerably and form the bulk of Pokemon assigned to the type. It is possible that this has to do with the more advanced brain structures of most mammals compared to other types of life, but this does not take away from the fact that the type has a foothold in most types of modern life and is thus a fairly common threat to encounter in the wild. Even beyond life that is understood, the type extends to many creatures of unknown biology and purpose, and to many of the most powerful Pokemon known, cementing its status as both one of the most common and most dangerous out there to have to go up against. In looking at the overall move variety of the Psychic type, it can be said that the type includes some of the most versatile Pokemon known, or at least in the way of special attacks, with some minor exceptions. On the one hand, when it comes to the moves that they can learn naturally, the Pokemon assigned to this type generally are limited in getting access to almost nothing but Psychic type moves for offense and defense, or very little at all, with only a small number being in the middle of those groups. On the other hand, however, when artificial sources of moves are introduced, it can be seen that these creatures can learn a staggering variety of different moves and can thus be armed with a tremendous degree of variation at their disposal, allowing these creatures to channel the different forms that psychic power can manifest through to decimate a wide variety of opponents and ultimately act as some of the most dangerous beasts to have to confront without prior knowledge of just what kinds of tricks they are capable of pulling. In terms of stat averages, the Psychic type is one that excels in many different areas and can ultimately prove to be a dangerous force to have to go to war with at a distance. On the one hand, the type is known for lacking a lot of Pokemon that are built to be able to deal with combat in close quarters. This makes sense since the type is all about using the power of the mind to attack and defeat foes without necessarily having to even touch them once, so there is no real need for them to really get into close conflicts with others, resulting in the type having below average base attack and defense stats compared to the other known types. On the other hand, however, these Pokemon can show some resilience in their physical form in regards to stamina, tend to naturally have very strong special offenses and resistance against the elemental attacks of other Pokemon, and are gifted with great agility in order to get the drop on opponents before they have the chance to strike, rendering all 4 remaining base stats of the type above average compared to other types. This cements the type as a powerful distance combatant that can take the best special offenses thrown at it and dish it right back out with great speed and enough energy to weather a few blows before going for a knockout blow. Currently, there are 85 recognized types of Psychic-type Pokemon, 35 of them being pure Psychic types and the remaining 50 being dual types. Additionally, 19 of the dual types are primary Psychic types, while the remaining 31 are secondary Psychic types. They are broken down into the following categories. Mammals. These Pokemon are all unified by the fact that they are mammals, and easily form the largest constituent group of Psychic types. While the overall powers might vary immensely from one species to the next, their mammalian body plan helps to define them as a single whole unit, and makes it possible to understand their powers more distinctly, and in turn have served as the source of many revelations in understanding the Psychic type. The fact that many of them are closely related to traditional animals and are only differentiated readily by their powers might make them seem plain, but some of the strongest Psychic types known are a part of this category and should thus never be truly underestimated. Birds. These Pokemon are all unified by the fact that they are birds, and represent a unique branch of the Psychic type that is not all that often explored biologically. While the members of the Naruto family are able to readily use their Psychic powers to both see into the past and the future in any state, Oricorio are only able to wield Psychic power or in their Pau-style form, and even then are limited to making use of it for their Revelation Dance attack. Lugia might only have limited access to Psychic power, but their status as legendary Pokemon makes them truly terrifying beasts to have to encounter, with more than enough power in their wings to generate terrible storms and devastate those that dare to stand against them. Automatons. These Pokemon are all unified by the fact that they are automatons of artificial construction, created by humans in ancient times. While they're all gifted psychics, these creatures generally tend to be better used defensively and have the right mix of stats and moves to make this possible. Even so, Pokemon like Sigilyph can hit decently hard with their attacks, and Bronzong especially can be both an offensive and defensive pain with its strong type combination and access to abilities like Levitate and Heat Proof. Amorphous. These Pokemon are all unified by the fact that their physical forms do not follow the anatomical conventions seen in many other types of life, making it very difficult to say exactly what they are related to. The members of the Chingling family have abnormal bodies that are almost mechanical in nature and have the appearance of physical bells and chimes brought to life, while the origins of the members of the Elgyem family are still a total mystery. The Unknown, though fairly weak on their own with only the hidden power attack to defend themselves with, can together wield a terrifying power and warp the very fabric of reality as they wish, making the wildest of dreams become reality even if the results are absolutely disastrous. Biomechanized. These Pokemon are unified by the fact that they are generally difficult to classify as biological or mechanical entities, as they effectively straddle the line between the two groups. Starmie are much like Staryu in that they are almost wholly inorganic and possess only an organic system of nerves within their crystalline core that acts as their brain and grants them the capacity to utilize psychic powers to an advanced degree, despite them being unable to learn any new psychic-type attacks after evolution. The members of the Beldum family are different in that magnetism effectively serves as their lifeblood and the source of powers. Aside from granting them the capacity to levitate off of the ground, this power enables these creatures to swing their steel-hard bodies around as massive bludgeoning devices capable of inflicting tremendous physical pain while creating almost no wear and tear internally and externally, a trait made even more dangerous by the fact that Metang and Metagross are two of the only 3 species of Pokemon, the other being Clefairy, able to learn the devastating Meteor Mash attack naturally. Macro-Cellular. This special category is reserved for the members of the Solosis family, who are unique in that they possess bodies that, while they are indeed made of multiple cells, are joined together in such a fashion as to make the whole organism look and act like a single cell or a series of cells as they grow and develop. They are protected from the outside by an intercellular matrix that protects them from environmental hazards and harsh weather, so they can survive in just about any type of environment, no matter how hostile it may be. Even so, it does not offer them a lot in the way of straight defense, so they tend to be rather frail at a young age and unable to use their physical bodies to deal a ton of damage. They are thankfully gifted at a young age with incredibly potent psychic powers, though it takes some time for them before they can acquire any psychic-type attacks that deal direct damage. Regardless, these creatures are definitely among the strongest of psychic types and can deal both powerful special damage and a bit of physical damage when they are fully developed, granting them a minor degree of diversity that can give them an edge over opponents with high special defenses. Plants. This special category is reserved for the members of the Execute family, representing the only known true plants that have ready access to psychic power as a weapon in battle. While they might not gain access to many powerful psychic-type attacks to work with as they age and develop, these creatures are well known for their potent hypnosis technique and capacity to put to sleep anything that gets in their way, even at a young age. Executor of the normal variety in particular are gifted psychics with access to the unique Psy Shock attack and more than enough special offense to make them a severe threat to anyone that dares to underestimate them and their otherwise awkward appearances and mannerisms. Living Stone. This special category is reserved for Lunatone and Solrock, which are distinctly different from other psychic types in being made almost completely out of rock. Though their overall psychic powers might be a bit limited, they can at least make good use of it to strike with decent force in battle and keep themselves continuously levitated up off of the ground. The only thing that really keeps these creatures from being grouped with the Automatons is the fact that they are naturally occurring and have been on this planet likely longer than humans have. Cephalopods. This special category is reserved for the members of the Inkay family, which are known as some of the most powerful hypnotists in the world, giving even the iconic Pokemon Hypno a run for its money. While the landward journey of these creatures might make them seem like odd beasts to be encountering inland, they are not to be trifled with, as they are able to make good use of their powers to hypnotize just about anyone while simultaneously being able to wield anti-positive energy as a devastating complementary weapon. With access to the unique topsy-turvy technique as well, these malicious beasts can easily force others into doing the most unspeakable of things for their mere amusement, and should be rightfully feared if encountered without proper counters. Counter types. This special category is reserved for the members of the Why-Not family, who are unique among psychic types in that they technically cannot actually use any genuine psychic type offenses in battle. Why-Not themselves are too weak to do much of anything in battle and don't actually gain any form of defense until after they evolve. Wobbuffet are seen as both the perfect counter and anti-counter for all types of defensive and offensive strategies, and are perfectly designed to give trainers unable to deal with their abnormal vitality a nightmare of a fight, as their mirror coat and counter moves can reflect any damage they take with double the force. The safeguard technique helps to protect them against debilitating status conditions, and the Destiny Bond technique finishes the deal and allows Wobbuffet to take the opposition down with them if the next attack is likely to knock them out. Fish. The only fish Pokemon that possess strong enough psychic abilities to actually be classified as psychic types, being able to use their powers for both biological and combative reasons. On the one hand, they are able to use their psychic powers to hunt for prey, utilizing it as a radar system of sorts while they hide, buried in sand, waiting for their prey to approach them so they can strike without warning. On the other hand, their psychic power can be used to great effect in battle, as it gives these fish access to the Psychic Fangs attack, a rare move only they can learn naturally that is perfect barriers to pieces. Lake Guardians. This special category is reserved for the members of the Lake Trio, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, who are recognized in Sinnoh mythology as the creatures responsible for in general 3 critical traits that allow life to change and evolve both physically and psychologically: knowledge, emotion, and willpower. These creatures are believed to reside within the 3 major lakes situated in the Sinnoh region, and all possess extraordinary defensive powers that make them a bad choice to anger or even fight against. As such, these creatures are almost never seen by human eyes and usually spend their time sleeping in peace, keeping their over the features that make life today possible, safe, and away from the hands of those who would dare use them for devious purposes. Super-Ancestor. This special category is reserved for Mew, a creature of whom very little is actually known about, as they tend to stay nice, possibly out of fear of being attacked or captured. These creatures are free-spirited and enjoy using their psychic powers to simply play with others, rarely ever choosing to fight. This does not depict their true abilities very well though, as these creatures are able to utilize their psychic powers to such an enormous extent that they are actually capable of shape-shifting through a transform technique, a power so unique that only Ditto share it. Mew is certainly not among the most powerful of fighters, but their incredible rarity and abnormal powers have nonetheless managed to make them among the most coveted and respected legendary Pokemon in existence. Ultimate Clone. This special category is reserved for Mewtwo, a creature whose origin story is one of greed, hope, and utter devastation that paints both a heroic and bloody picture for this otherwise unseen creature. Mewtwo was designed to be a much more powerful clone of its relative, Mew, but as a result of constant genetic recombining and manipulation, it has gained both an abnormal anatomy and powers unlike that possessed by any other psychic type. Unlike all other psychic types, Mewtwo possesses a second spinal cord protruding from its body that allows Mewtwo to channel its psychic power freely without worrying about damaging the nerves in its primary spinal cord, in turn granting it the capacity to commit unheard acts of matter manipulation, even to the point where it can physically control the motions of individual molecules. This sort of massive power is the secret behind the beast's signature attack, Psy-Strike, and effectively makes it the most powerful psychic type in existence. The current whereabouts of Mewtwo are still an absolute mystery, and it is unknown if it will ever find peace in the world after all it has been through. But if one thing can be said, this is one Pokemon that even the most noble and experienced of trainers should stay far away from regardless of the situation. Extra-Temporal. This special category is reserved for Celebi, who are distinct from normal psychic types in two key ways: their body form and powers. For one thing, it is unknown if Celebi are plants, animals, or something in between, but they are classified as grass types because of their ability to effectively take and deliver damage as a grass type would, and as psychic types because of their penchant for matter manipulation in times of danger. Secondly, they are the only psychic type and only one of two Pokemon known, the other being Dialga, capable of time traveling. It is believed that this is done by opening a tiny, barely usable wormhole that is only open for a few fractions of a second at the most, but is otherwise stable enough to enable time travel. This makes Celebi extremely difficult to find and nearly impossible to capture, cementing their legendary status in turn. Wishmaker. This special category is reserved for Jirachi, special creatures that are noted for their ability to use their advanced psychokinetic powers to grant wishes. It is still unknown how this power works exactly, but it is a devastating force that allows these creatures to defy the very laws of reality, all in the name of making the deepest desires of others come true. The process may drain them of energy rapidly, to the point where they can only remain awake for 7 days at a time before resting for 1,000 years. But to the few that can have an encounter with one, it is truly a moment not worth missing under any circumstances. Extraterrestrial. This special category is reserved for Deoxys, one of only two species of Pokemon, the other being Kyurem, that is verified by both governments and scientists alike to definitely be of extraterrestrial origin. Deoxys are believed to have been a unique type of viral organism before reaching the Earth, encased within a crystalline lattice that may have served as a sort of stasis pod. Upon reaching this planet, the virus mutated due to the application of water vapor and intense energy, becoming the species now recognized as Deoxys. Although only a few of these creatures have ever landed on Earth, it is known that their gelatinous bodies are generally frail but capable of complete regeneration as long as the crystalline stasis pod is intact, as it effectively serves as both their heart and brain. Deoxys do not have possession of true psychic powers, but are able to utilize electromagnetic energy to physically alter the space around them, much as any other psychic type would, hence the classification for lack of a better assignment. In truth, Deoxys are among the most powerful of psychic-type creatures out there, as their capacity to shapeshift to become powerful offensive and defensive fighters, as well as unbeatable speed demons, in addition to being the only Pokemon known to naturally learn the devastating Psycho Boost attack, more than makes them a challenge to even the most experienced of trainers. Lunar Pokémon. This special category is reserved for Cresselia, which are classified as psychic types because of their capacity to utilize psychic powers in battle, though their true powers go beyond that, in that they are effectively designed to cure nightmares. It is believed that this power may have come as a result of interactions with another species associated with dreams, Darkrai. These creatures are generally not well suited for offensive fights, but have strong defensive stats and gain access to unique moves like Aurora Beam and the signature move, Lunar Dance, that make them powerful forces on the battlefield. Fairy-Morph. This special category is reserved for Meloetta while they are in their Aria form. It is unknown exactly how they are able to make good use of psychic power as an effective weapon, but in this state, these fairy-like creatures have the power to use their very voices to transmit psychic energy, putting anything that listens to their song in a deep slumber before potentially assaulting them with psychic power. Even if they are limited to the confusion and psychic attacks for offense of this type naturally, they can still make good use of the moves and make themselves a powerful psychic threat that only the hard of hearing may have a good chance of surviving against. Djinn. This special category is reserved for Hoopa, bizarre creatures that tread the line between what can be classified as real and not real, for their very nature is one that eludes scientific understanding in the modern day. Possessing the impressive ability to use its energized rings to create wormholes and transport objects great distances, this creature's body seems to be quite solid and physically real, but any and all attempts to scan it to examine its internal structure reveal that Hoopa is not there at all. This unique creature is believed now by some to perhaps be an ethereal manifestation of a great psychic power that has a distinct mind and consciousness, yet is completely free of biological existence or creation. Whether or not this is the truth is impossible to prove at this time, given the puzzling attributes these creatures demonstrate when examined. Moreover, it is strongly believed that the traditional form that it takes is not its true form, but a weakened form that is effectively bound to the ethereal plane to some degree or another. It has been observed that these creatures retain their psychic-type assignment even when their full power is unbound, but even then, they only become even more of a threat and a dire force not worth underestimating in battle. All that can be said for certain is that these creatures are extremely powerful regardless of what form they take, and are more than capable of using their powers to create wormholes and attack opponents in ways that few, if any other psychic-type Pokemon, could ever hope to pull off. Guardian Land Spirit. This special category is reserved for Tapu Lele, a legendary Pokemon said to be the guardian spirit of Akala Island in the Alola region, and the deity responsible for the appointment of Olivia as the kahuna of the island in the recent past. In the past, this island guardian served alongside the other Tapu spirits in protecting the region against attacks from Ultra Beasts, and in turn helped establish the modern system of kahuna leaders and the Island Challenge. This mystical fairy gets its powers from the fragrant aroma of flowers and has been known to scatter about strange glowing scales as it flies about for the sake of its own amusement, which apparently have the ability to restore good health to anyone that touches them. However, it is also understood that touching too many of them can prove to be dangerous and even lethal to some. Because of this, some natives claim the otherwise adorable creature to be incredibly cruel, angered by the complete lack of concern it shows for those that are destroyed instead of healed by their scales. Ultra Beast-like. This special category is reserved for the members of the Cosmog family, the only known legendaries that exist as an evolutionary family, and while Cosmog and Cosmoem are unable to make much use of their natural psychic powers, their evolved forms are a very different story. Solgaleo and Lunala are legendary Ultra Beast-like creatures that were once hailed as heroes and creatures of worship by the ancient people of the Alola region. In times long past, the Alola region was attacked by invaders from an unknown world, creatures that we now call the Ultra Beasts. The natives of the island had no protection against attack from these creatures and were left defenseless, and although the 4 land spirit guardians of the region's 4 islands were able to hold back the Ultra Beasts for a time, they were not strong enough on their own to defeat them. In desperation, the people of the region looked to the heavens for help, and were greeted with the sight of 2 legendary creatures, Solgaleo and Lunala. Battling back the monsters at all times of the day, the legendary beasts were able to drive the Ultra Beasts, as well as Necrozma, back from whence they came, sparing the people of the region. In time, the people of the Alola region crafted the Sun and Moon Flutes, items that can summon forth the same power the beasts used to drive back the Ultra Beasts when used together, though the artifacts were lost in time before being rediscovered just in time to help end the Aether Crisis. Seen as the emissaries of the Sun and Moon, the powers of these legendary beasts are derived from pure light, and while the use of light may differ, they are both united in that the very power of the stars is at their command. Although their genders may be completely undefinable by modern science, it is recognized that the two are able to come together and create Cosmog to propagate their kind, and their capacity to use ultra wormhole energy to aid them in battle and even open doorways to parallel universes is unprecedented, even for legendary Pokemon. Super Entity of Light. This special category is reserved for Necrozma, an incredibly ancient and powerful deity of the Ultra Space, and one of the few inhabitants of the many worlds connected to the Ultra Space that has the power to pierce through it and open portals to other worlds. In times past, when it was at full power, it emitted a great light that shined through many worlds and changed the life forms that lived in there for the better, enriching their lives and granting them power beyond their wildest imagination. This power, however, was taken advantage of by the people of Ultra Megalopolis in the past, and the severe strain put on its power led the creature to become permanently damaged. It went on a rampage and stole the light of their world and then attempted, but it was stopped and ultimately sealed back up, only to be unleashed once more in modern times. Although its power is limited in its normal state, it still retains the capacity to absorb large quantities of light to use as a weapon, and with its power, it can fuse with either Solgaleo or Lunala, which are beacons of light in their own right, to partially restore its power. Only when it has the time to merge with a damaged fragment of itself can it temporarily return to its true power in its Ultra Necrozma form, and unleash the devastating might that serves to make it the most powerful deity known to exist outside the confines of our own universe. In looking at the Psychic type's advantages and disadvantages in battle, in terms of offense, the Psychic type has 2 advantages, 2 disadvantages, and 1 negative immunity. The type is at an advantage against the Fighting type because of the sheer psychological struggle that it induces in the Fighting type Pokemon that are exposed to its power. While the brain structures of many Fighting type Pokemon are generally quite basic, they are very similar to that of humans and are thus able to display a number of emotional states and thought patterns that go beyond what normal Pokemon are truly capable of thinking. This sadly means, however, that they are highly susceptible to the effects of mind games and hypnosis among other things, thus allowing Psychic types to take advantage of this with telepathy to weaken the minds of their opposition, even going so far as to lock their minds into a state of psychological panic that weakens their entire bodies and renders them little more than puppets to the whims of their predators. The type is at an advantage against the Poison type quite infamously for the same reasons behind why Poison types are generally weak to ground type attacks. These creatures contain volatile chemicals in their bodies that they need to make their toxins, but these poisons can be triggered easily in some cases or mixed improperly to create a chemical reaction that could be harmful to the host, especially if the mixing or disturbance generates an explosion. While ground types generally must rely on seismic waves or ground-based projectiles to trigger volatile chemicals inside of a Poison type opponent, Psychic types can use their psychokinetic power to trigger these chemicals from afar or with close-quarter strikes charged with psychic energy, dealing severe damage to the target in the process and potentially dealing lethal damage in the worst of cases. The type is at a disadvantage against the Psychic type because Psychic types, in being able to use their minds to control the world around them, normally have some built-in resistance against psychokinetic power in order to keep them from basically cooking their own minds. This translates directly into resistance against the mind-altering powers possessed by other Psychic type Pokemon, in turn making the type typically resistant against itself. The type is at a disadvantage against the Steel type because many Steel type Pokemon naturally possess some form of body armor that helps to take and reflect much of the energy used in Psychic type attacks, or at the very least, the metallic bonds holding metal armor together are very sturdy and are not as easily moved around as psychic energy could normally do with other atomic structures. This has the effect of in turn partially dissipating the power into the open air, allowing these creatures to take reduced damage from any Psychic type attacks that attempt to strike through them and otherwise bypass their armored forms. Lastly, the type has no effect against the Dark type, and while the actual reasoning behind this is still the subject of much debate, it is nonetheless concrete enough to understand from an abstract perspective. Dark type moves are differentiated from the moves of other types in that they utilize a unique type of energy known only as anti-positive energy that effectively serves as the exact opposite of psychic energy. In short, while psychic energy is designed to manipulate matter, anti-positive energy is designed to halt any and all changes within the physical structure of an object made by psychic energy. This energy flows through dark types like a second bloodstream and essentially makes them immune to the effects of all psychic type moves by cancelling out the type's effects, a trait that serves as one of the dark type's most defining features in battle. Defensively speaking, the psychic type has 2 resistances, 3 weaknesses, and no immunities. The type is resistant against the fighting type because most psychic type exude an aura of psychic energy around them that either helps to directly buffer against the impact of energy used in fighting type attacks, or has the effect of subtly scrambling the minds of any user of a fighting type move as they get close to their target. This confuses them temporarily and disrupts their muscle systems so the attack does not land with the same power it normally would, and thus keeps the somewhat frail bodies of psychic types partially safe from severe damage. This technique can be a bit trickier when dealing with the minds of non-fighting types, but the general effect is still the same. The type is resistant against the psychic type because, as previously mentioned, being able to use their minds to control the world around them allows these creatures to normally have some built-in resistance against psychokinetic power to keep them from basically cooking their own minds. This translates directly into resistance against the mind-altering powers possessed by other psychic type Pokemon, in turn making the type typically resistant against itself. The type is weak against the bug type because, while not all trainers manage to make the connection so readily, many psychic types can think and act much like humans and in turn share with us the potential to possess psychological fears. In particular, these creatures tend to have an overbearing fear of lesser life forms that are of lower intelligence but are greater in number and are ferocious in their mannerisms, with bug types being a key exhibitor of these qualities. This makes sense as the seemingly mindless actions of individuals, but the powerful collective intelligence and strength of a swarm can be terrifying to just about anyone, and in the case of the psychic type, it seems that just about anything is capable of triggering a fearful episode when it comes from the bug type, even if the Pokemon using a bug type attack is not of that type. The type is weak against the ghost type because, while the minds of psychic type Pokemon might be incredibly complex and grant them special powers, they still show a great fear towards the unknown, and no type speaks to this fear more than the ghost type. The spiritual energy used by these creatures has the effect of triggering fear responses in psychic types, while at the same time piercing through them and attacking the physical and mental forms at the same time, assaulting them with fear and shadows beyond their comprehension. This makes the type inherently weak against the spectral attacks used by many ghost types, and in turn serves as one of the few weaknesses that can be found in the otherwise powerful and advanced minds possessed by Pokemon assigned to the psychic type. Lastly, the type is weak against the dark type because of the effects of anti-positive energy on the bodies of psychic type Pokemon. These creatures generally rely on their psychic powers to not only fuel their attacks and techniques, but also to help control and run their bodies in cases where they cannot find sustenance and instead must survive off of their own power to survive, something that is especially apparent in Pokemon like Alakazam. As such, when these creatures are injected with anti-positive energy, it stops this flow and thus weakens their physical form as a consequence, causing severe harm and dealing super effective damage in the process. As far as using the psychic type in battle goes, it is definitely a type that can take some getting used to and is not one that can easily be picked up and played with automatically, but can more than be worthwhile to master the use of. For starters, in general, while they might have some built-in resistance against special assaults, the Pokemon of the psychic type generally do not have the greatest of defenses, physical especially, and can thus be somewhat frail and difficult to fight with against more offensively powerful opponents. This is countered by the fact that many psychic types are built for offensive fights and can more than bring the pain on that note, and not only get good offensive attacks to work with, but are also linked to a litany of defensive techniques that can do anything from raising defensive barriers to protect against attack, to altering one's movement speed, or changing the physical properties of the environment around them, which they often do to make their immediate area more comfortable for them. The type can also be a bit troublesome because many psychic types have the capacity to, in at least some limited form, communicate with others through telepathy, but only a scant few are able to do so with any kind of mind. Most psychic types can only mentally link themselves with those that already possess some sort of psychic power in their mind, which is why the type is naturally so inclined to be in the parties of the psychic trainer class. However, this does not mean that it is impossible for similar links to be formed, as those that dedicate themselves to strengthening their mind and bond with their Pokemon through normal means can occasionally develop these same sorts of psychic connections. As a result of the complex bonds needed to maximize the performance of these creatures, the psychic type can be a bit tricky to use properly without the right skills, but if this barrier can be passed, they are surprisingly easy to take care of and form deep relationships with. This comes down to their generally high intelligence among Pokemon, overall being the most intelligent type of them all, and thus in turn appeal to the real brainiacs of the Pokemon world and are able to form fast friendships with Pokemon and especially people alike. The psychic type is one feared by many for its uncanny ability to twist and damage the minds of others in order to get its way in a fight through any means necessary. And while it might seem to be a scary type to have to deal with, the sheer might that can be brought forth by those that are a part of it nonetheless makes it a type worth mastering, if only to use the very minds of the opposition against them and show them what true brain power means in the context of a heated battle. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description. With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.